Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Legacy here. Today, we're exploring a pretty wild fanfic scenario. What if Naruto ate magma fruit? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you're always in the loop when a new one drops. Let's set a small goal, 55 likes on this video. I know we can hit it. Alright, let's get into it. Chapter 1. A Fiery Awakening. The night was thick and heavy in the Hidden Leaf Village, as if the air itself was too tired to move. Lantern light glowed behind windows, washing out into the narrow streets where laughter, dinner smells, and soft music mingled, always just out of reach for one boy in orange. Naruto Uzumaki's stomach rumbled, louder than ever, as he walked the darkened alley behind Ichiraka Ramen. He'd blown his last allowance days ago. Even Irika-sensei, usually quick with a meal or a smile, had been called away for mission duty. Tonight, Naruto was alone with his hunger. He squatted beside a trash can and poked inside. Nothing but cold rice and empty wrappers. He tried to grin. Guess it's a diet night, huh? But the joke fell flat, echoing into the night. He felt a pang of something sharp and hollow. Sometimes, he told himself that the loneliness didn't matter. Sometimes, he even believed it. With nothing left to find, Naruto wandered through the side streets, then up into the woods that bordered the village wall. Leaves crunched under his sandals, cool and damp. There were stories about these woods. Ghosts, angry spirits, even wild animals. But Naruto felt safer out here than among the stares of the villagers. He slumped down on a tree root, hugging his knees to his chest, trying to pretend he wasn't cold. Up above, moonlight caught something strange, glinting red and shining gold, nestled between tangled roots. Naruto blinked, stood, and moved closer. A fruit, the likes of which he'd never seen. It was roughly the size of a grapefruit, its skin a swirl of deep red and molten orange, with curling gold patterns etched across the surface. It looked almost alive, pulsing gently in the moonlight. Naruto's stomach made the decision for him. He snatched up the fruit and sniffed it. Odd, there was a hint of heat, as if the fruit had been left too close to a fire, but not burned. He bit down. The taste was instant and overwhelming, bitter, metallic, as if he'd bitten into hot coals. Naruto gagged, eyes watering, but his hunger kept him chewing. He forced the fruit down, his entire body heating up as if he'd swallowed the sun itself. His throat burned. Sweat broke out on his forehead. He stumbled backward, vision swirling with orange spots. What did I just eat? He doubled over, hands digging into the earth. He felt something boiling beneath his skin, a power both terrible and wild. He coughed, and a puff of smoke escaped his lips. The ground around his hands began to blacken, tiny cracks appearing as the soil heated, steaming in the chill night. Naruto stared, eyes wide with fear and awe. He pressed his palm to the ground, a pulse of heat, and the grass hissed away in a perfect circle. The pain in his chest ebbed, replaced by a sense of fullness, of power. Something inside him, something other, had awoken. Suddenly, footsteps crashed through the underbrush. Naruto, are you all right? It was Irika, breathless and worried, kunai drawn. Naruto tried to stand, swaying on his feet. Irika-sensei. His voice trembled, halfway between excitement and terror. I think I ate something weird. Irika rushed to his side, eyes darting between Naruto's soot-stained hands and the still smoldering patch of earth. For a moment, Irika just stared. Then, he put a steadying hand on Naruto's shoulder. Let's get you home. Whatever you found, we'll figure it out together. Naruto nodded, still shaking. The pain faded, but the warmth remained, a hidden ember, smoldering deep inside. As they walked back to the village, Naruto glanced up at the stars. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel quite so empty. Maybe something was about to change. Maybe, just maybe, tomorrow would be different. Chapter 2. Team 7 and Hidden Power. The next morning, sunlight crept through Naruto's apartment window, painting dusty rectangles on the cluttered floor. Naruto sat up slowly, half expecting to find his room burnt to cinders. But everything looked normal, except his hands, which were still stained faintly black, as if he'd gripped a burning log. He flexed his fingers, nervous. Was it all a dream? He closed his eyes, trying to summon that heat again. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from somewhere deep inside, he felt it, a surge of warmth, as if a tiny furnace had been lit beneath his ribs. Naruto shook his head, trying not to panic. If this was a new jutsu, he'd have to keep it secret. The villagers already looked at him with enough suspicion. He couldn't give them another reason to fear him. He threw on his jacket, grabbed his forehead protector, and bolted out the door. The academy courtyard was already buzzing with excitement. Today, they'd be assigned to squads, finally taking the first step toward becoming real ninja. Naruto spotted Sakura by the wall, clutching her books, and Sasuke brooding under a tree. He grinned, trying to ignore the little flicker of heat that seemed to spark whenever he got nervous. Iruka stood at the front of the courtyard, clipboard in hand. "All right, listen up. I'll announce the squads. When your name is called, stand with your teammates." As the teams were called, Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, Hinata, Shino, Naruto's stomach twisted with anticipation. And finally, Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha. "Your sensei will be Kakashi Hitaki." Naruto couldn't help it. A huge, goofy grin split his face. He'd been put on a team with Sakura and Sasuke. He pumped his fist in the air. "Yes," Sakura groaned. "Just my luck." Sasuke just narrowed his eyes at Naruto, sizing him up. For a second, Naruto felt something new in Sasuke's gaze. Not just annoyance, but a hint of curiosity, maybe even rivalry. As the teams assembled, Kakashi appeared almost out of nowhere, hands in his pockets, masked face unreadable. "Meet me on the roof in 10 minutes, he said, and vanished in a swirl of leaves. On the roof, Naruto couldn't sit still. The warmth in his chest kept flaring up whenever he got excited or anxious, like a tea kettle on the verge of boiling over. Kakashi's one visible eye crinkled with amusement. "All right, why don't you introduce yourselves? Hobbies, dreams, likes, dislikes." Sasuke went first, voice cool as ice. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I don't have many likes and a lot of dislikes. My goal is to restore my clan and destroy a certain someone." Sakura went next, glancing nervously at Sasuke. "My name is Sakura Haruno. My hobbies are, well, reading," and she blushed, "other stuff. My dream is to—" She trailed off, sneaking another look at Sasuke. When it was Naruto's turn, he stood a little taller, remembering Iruka's steady hand from the night before. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen, especially at Ichiraku's, and pulling pranks. I hate being ignored. My dream is to become Hokage, so everyone has to acknowledge me." He felt that warmth again, stronger this time, spreading out through his limbs. Suddenly, smoke curled from his sleeve, and he yelped, patting himself down. Sakura stared. Sasuke looked even more intrigued. Kakashi gave Naruto a long, careful look. "Interesting," he said. "All right. Tomorrow at 5 a.m., meet me at Training Ground 7. Don't eat breakfast, or you'll regret it." Naruto's mind buzzed as he walked home. Was it his imagination? Or did Kakashi already know something was up? Had he seen the smoke? Back in his tiny apartment, Naruto stood in front of the cracked bathroom mirror. He rolled up his sleeve, focused, and tried to draw out the power. Heat surged through his veins. He pressed his palm to the sink, and with a faint hiss, the porcelain cracked, a spiderweb of black lines spreading from his fingertips. Naruto staggered back, heart thumping. What am I turning into? He looked at his reflection, messy blonde hair, bright blue eyes, a face still round with childhood. But in the mirror, he saw something new, a flicker of red, like fire caught behind glass. For a long moment, he stared at his reflection, wrestling with fear and excitement. If he was changing, he would have to face it. No more running away. Outside, the village moved on, unaware that something new and dangerous had awakened in their midst. Tomorrow, Team 7's first challenge awaited. Chapter 3, The Bell Test. Naruto barely slept. Excitement, nerves, and something hot and restless inside kept him tossing under his thin blanket. By the time the sky turned pale gray, he was already dressed and out the door, ignoring the growl of his empty stomach. Just as Kakashi had warned, he reached Training Ground 7 just as dawn broke over the village. Sakura was already there, yawning and shivering, and Sasuke leaned against a post, arms folded, eyes sharp even in the morning haze. "Morning," Naruto called, forcing a smile. The others nodded, their own nerves simmering under the surface. Kakashi arrived late, of course, with a cheerful wave and a book in hand. "Sorry I'm late. A black cat crossed my path, so I had to take the long way." He tucked the book away, eye twinkling. "Now, let's get started." He held up 2 small bells, their metal glinting in the early light. "The goal is simple. Get these bells from me before noon. Whoever doesn't get a bell will be tied to a post and sent back to the academy." Sakura paled. "There's only 2. Kakashi smiled behind his mask. "Life isn't fair. Sometimes you have to fight your friends to get ahead. Begin." He vanished, almost faster than Naruto could blink. Sasuke and Sakura scattered instantly, but Naruto froze. He could feel that strange warmth building already, his nerves lighting the fuse. "Focus, Naruto. Don't mess this up. He darted into the trees, remembering the lessons Irika drilled into him. Stay out of sight. Think before you attack. But the heat wouldn't stay quiet. It pulsed in his chest, begging for release. Kakashi's voice drifted from somewhere above. You're not hiding very well, Naruto. Naruto's temper flared. I'll show you hiding. He leapt out, tossing a barrage of kunai, only for Kakashi to dodge effortlessly, reappearing behind him. Naruto spun, clenching his fists. He tried to will the heat away, but it spilled out, his palms growing hot, steam rising from his skin. He swung, and with a whoosh, a burst of superheated air knocked leaves from the trees. Kakashi dodged, eyebrows lifting just slightly. That's new. Naruto's heart pounded. Did Kakashi see? Could he tell something was different? But there was no time to think. Kakashi came at him in a blur, hands snapping out. In a panic, Naruto thrust both hands forward, and a circle of dirt blackened around his feet, heat radiating up in a haze. Kakashi skidded back, eyes widening in surprise. Naruto stared at his own hands, panting. What am I doing? I can't control it. The commotion drew Sasuke and Sakura from their hiding spots. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, assessing both Naruto and Kakashi, always thinking, always watching. Sakura called out, Naruto, are you okay? He nodded, swallowing hard, trying to act tough. Never better. But inside, the heat threatened to bubble over again. Kakashi clapped, easygoing as ever. You three are interesting. But this isn't about flashy moves or raw power. It's about teamwork. Naruto bristled. Teamwork? But there are only two bells. Before he could finish, Kakashi was gone again, moving through the trees like a shadow. Sasuke shot Naruto a glare. Don't get in my way, he said, disappearing to hunt Kakashi alone. Sakura hesitated, torn between her teammates. Naruto felt the pressure mount. If I lose control, I'll burn everything. But if I do nothing, I'll fall behind. He remembered Irika's steady words. Whatever you found, we'll figure it out together. Naruto took a shaky breath. He decided to try, just for once, to work with the others. He called out to Sakura, suggesting a plan. Distract Kakashi while Sasuke tried to grab a bell. Sakura nodded, relieved to have a direction. Together, they launched a clumsy, honest attempt at cooperation. Sasuke took advantage, nearly snatching a bell from Kakashi's belt before the sensei outmaneuvered him, grinning behind his mask. The test dragged on, mistakes, exhaustion, small victories, and big failures. Naruto's hands burned more with each attempt, but with Sakura's help, he managed to pull back, to cool off before things got out of control. Finally, time ran out. The three stood, dirty and defeated, in front of Kakashi. Their stomachs growled in unison. Kakashi tied Naruto to a post, but as he set down a simple lunch, he gave them one more chance. The real test wasn't the bells. It was whether you'd help each other. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. He turned away, hiding his smile. Feed Naruto. If anyone gets caught, you'll all fail. Sakura hesitated only a moment before handing Naruto a rice ball. Sasuke grunted, shoving half his lunch toward Naruto. The warmth inside Naruto settled, calmer than it had been in days. Kakashi returned, nodding with approval. You pass. Naruto blinked, stunned. Really? Kakashi nodded. Team 7 starts tomorrow. Naruto grinned, mouth full of rice, eyes shining with relief. For once, he didn't feel like he was carrying the world alone. He looked at his teammates, Sasuke, cool but present, Sakura, tired but smiling, and Kakashi, mysterious but maybe on their side. As the sun climbed higher, Naruto felt hope for the first time in a long while. Maybe, just maybe, he'd finally found a place to belong, even with the strange fire burning inside. Chapter 4. The Cost of Power. 2 weeks passed. Team 7's days were filled with odd jobs, catching cats, pulling weeds, rescuing lost pets. Naruto chafed against the boredom, itching to test his true strength, to do something real. The heat in his chest felt wasted on these menial tasks. Even so, he noticed a change in the way he felt around Sakura and Sasuke. Their teamwork improved bit by bit. Arguments still flared, but laughter sometimes crept in too. Kakashi was a mystery, but he watched Naruto with a new, searching look. Not distrustful, but cautious, as if waiting to see which way Naruto would tip, hero or threat. Then, everything changed when Hokage-sama finally gave them a real mission. The Land of Ways was nothing like the bustling streets of Konoha. Mist clung to the ground, thick and cold, swallowing sound and color. Their client, Tazuna the bridge builder, was nervous and sharp-tongued, always glancing over his shoulder. Even Naruto could tell something wasn't right. On the road, tension built. When two masked men attacked, Chunin level missing Nin. Naruto's heart raced, the magma within him threatening to spill out. Sasuke and Kakashi moved fast, taking down one attacker. Naruto froze, hands trembling. He remembered the blackened ground, the hiss of burned grass, his own fear. Sakura shouted, "Naruto, behind you." On instinct, Naruto turned. The enemy lunged, kunai glinting. Naruto raised his arm to block, willing his power to help. Heat surged, and with a burst of steam, the enemy's blade melted at the edge, dropping harmlessly to the ground. Everyone stared. Even the attacker's eyes widened in terror. Naruto's arm smoked, but his sleeve was intact, protected, somehow, by the very force inside him. Kakashi stepped in, subduing the last enemy. His gaze flickered to Naruto, sharp and assessing, but he said nothing. Later that night, Team 7 camped near the water's edge. Naruto sat apart from the others, staring at his hands, flexing his fingers. He felt strong, maybe stronger than anyone had a right to, but also strange, heavy, and tired. Sasuke approached, hands in his pockets. "That trick you pulled today, what was it?" Naruto shrugged, keeping his eyes on the fire. "Just something I figured out." Sasuke wasn't satisfied, but he didn't push. Instead, he dropped to sit beside Naruto, silent. The crackle of the campfire filled the space between them. Sakura watched them from across the flames, worry on her face, but she said nothing. Kakashi kept his own counsel, but Naruto felt his sensei's gaze more than once that night. The next day, mist rolled and thicker than ever. Their path took them over a narrow causeway, water dark and deep on either side. Suddenly, a monstrous figure appeared, Zabuza Momochi, demon of the mist. He carried a sword as tall as a man and wore a smile that promised death. Kakashi stepped forward. "Team 7, protect the client. I'll handle this." But Zabuza's water jutsu split the battlefield, and chaos erupted. Naruto's head pounded with fear and heat. When a water clone charged at him and Sakura, Naruto threw himself in front of her. His hands flared red-hot, steam rising as he grabbed the clone, boiling it away with a hiss. But victory came with a price. As the fight raged, Naruto found himself surrounded by water. He tried to wade in to help Kakashi, but his limbs went heavy, sluggish. Every step into the shallows was a battle. The magma within him, the source of his power, grew weaker with every splash, every drop. He slipped, water closing over his head. The world blurred, cold, and muffled. Panic seized him. Sakura's scream cut through the water. "Naruto!" A hand grasped his collar and yanked him to safety. Sasuke, face pale but determined. Naruto coughed up water, feeling humiliated. "Weak. You can't swim?" Sasuke asked, incredulous. Naruto shook his head, shivering. "It's different now." He didn't have the words for what he'd lost. When the battle ended and Zabuza retreated, Team 7 dragged themselves onto the bridge's half-finished planks, bruised and exhausted. Tazuna stared at Naruto with new respect and more than a little fear. That night, as they huddled in a safe house, Naruto lay awake, listening to the rain. His power made him strong, but also vulnerable. Fire and magma could do amazing things, but water was his enemy, now more than ever. For the first time, he wondered if his dream of being accepted, of being Hokage, might come at a cost he'd never imagined. But as he listened to Sakura's gentle breathing and Sasuke's quiet snoring, Naruto promised himself, no matter how hard it got, he wouldn't let this power, or his fear, keep him from protecting the people who finally mattered. Chapter 5, Shadows in the Forest. People were staring at Naruto. It was different now, not the usual side glances and whispered curses, but real attention, hungry and sharp. He noticed it on the walk back into the village. Heads turning, voices lowering, a sense of being watched. This was new. He'd always wanted recognition, but not like this. Not with this strange, wary edge. He tried to pretend he didn't hear them. "That's him, right?" "Yeah, the kid from Team 7. Burned a rogue ninja's blade with his bare hand. I heard the bridge in the land of waves almost melted. They say he's got some sort of demon blood." Naruto shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, the memory of that burning moment still raw under his skin. Power was supposed to feel good. It was supposed to make everything better. But all it did was make people nervous, even the ones he called friends. Even Sakura, walking next to him, had started glancing at his hands when she thought he wasn't looking. Sasuke hadn't said a word about it, but his silence felt heavy. If anything, Sasuke trained harder than ever, every sparring match with Naruto more intense, as if he had something to prove. Only Kakashi seemed the same, calm and unreadable. He kept an extra eye on Naruto during training, but never brought up what happened in the land of waves. Naruto wasn't sure if that made him feel better or worse. He tried to act normal. He joked and bragged. He grumbled about D-rank missions and tried to make everyone laugh, but something in the air had shifted. He couldn't put it into words. He just knew. People were watching. The missions got harder. They spent more time on patrol, less time wrangling cats. Naruto didn't mind. It felt good to push himself, to see how far he could go without losing control. Sometimes, though, he caught his teammates watching him during a fight. Just a quick glance, but always with that same question in their eyes. What else can he do? The answer scared him as much as it fascinated them. The first real break in routine came one morning when Kakashi handed them a sealed letter. Naruto felt the tension before anyone said a word. Kakashi's single visible eye studied each of them carefully, lingering a fraction longer on Naruto. "You three have been nominated for the Chunin exams," Sakura gasped. Sasuke's eyes lit up. Naruto's heart jumped. "Seriously?" he blurted, grinning before he could stop himself. Kakashi nodded, a faint smile crinkling his eye. "Seriously. But be careful. This isn't like anything you've done before." He didn't have to say it twice. The word spread almost as fast as the rumors had. Team 7 was in the exams. The kid with the burning hands was in the exams. The academy buzzed with excitement. Old classmates Ino, Kiba, Choji, Shikamaru, Hinata, Shino gathered in clusters, talking strategy and rivals. Naruto tried to act casual as he strolled into the building, but he could feel it again. Eyes on him. Whispers in the hallway. He saw new faces too, strangers from other villages. Eyes sharp, faces unfamiliar. Some looked at him with open curiosity, others with something closer to fear. He wondered if this was what being famous felt like. This knot in his stomach, this ache in his chest. He caught sight of Kurenai from Team 8 across the room. Her eyes met his, and, for a second, he felt the heat inside him settle. There was something different in her gaze. No fear, just understanding, and maybe a little concern. It steadied him, more than he wanted to admit. "Hey, focus." Sasuke nudged him, eyes narrowed, a tiny smile ghosting his lips. "Don't let them get in your head." Naruto stuck his tongue out. "You worry too much," but his heart beat a little faster all the same. The exam hall was loud and tense, filled with genin from every corner of the shinobi world. As they found their seats, Naruto tried not to let his nerves show. He felt the heat inside him flare up, just a little, every time someone whispered his name. He squeezed his fists, breathing slow, trying to stay calm. The written test was brutal. Questions that made his brain ache, proctors who watched every twitch. Naruto squirmed in his seat, cursing under his breath, but he refused to give up. If anyone stared at him, he stared right back. When the final question came, he raised his hand with all the confidence he could fake. They passed. Barely, but they passed. And then came the forest of death. Naruto stared at the dark, twisted woods that towered above the starting gate. The name alone was enough to set everyone on edge. Teams whispered their strategies, checked their gear, looked each other up and down. Anko, their proctor, eyed Naruto with a wild, crooked smile. "No torching the forest, kid." "Got it." He grinned back, the old bravado coming easier now. No promises. As they stepped into the shadows, Naruto felt the heat inside him surge. Not fear this time, but anticipation. All the eyes, all the whispers, all the doubts faded into the background. Out here, it was just him and his team, the unknown, and the fire in his blood. He might be different. He might even be dangerous. But for the first time, he was ready to find out exactly what he could do. Chapter 6. Into the Forest of Death. The gates to the Forest of Death loomed ahead, iron and ancient with tangled and creeping vines. Team 7 stood in line with dozens of other teams, nerves stretched tight, waiting for the proctors to hand out their scrolls. Naruto fidgeted, bouncing on his toes. The forest looked like something out of a nightmare, dark, thick, alive with secrets. The scent of wet earth and moss drifted on the breeze. Behind him, Sakura tied her headband a little tighter, determination shining in her eyes. Sasuke's face was all business, cold and sharp. Anko Mitarashi, wild-eyed and grinning, strutted along the line. When she got to Naruto, she paused just long enough to flash her sharp smile. "Try not to make any craters, Uzumaki. Or do. Makes my job interesting." Naruto grinned, but inside, the magma in his veins hummed with restless energy. He felt strong, stronger than ever, but the edge of something dangerous pulsed in his chest. They received their scroll, exchanged tense nods, and stepped through the gate. Instantly, the air changed. Sound thickened, distant cries echoing through the dense trees. The world seemed to close in around them, shadows flickering, the canopy swallowing sunlight. Even breathing felt different. Sasuke took point, silent and focused. Sakura watched their backs. Naruto, caught between them, tried to keep his mind on the mission. Find another scroll. Survive. Don't trust anyone. But every crack of a branch, every movement in the brush, sent his senses sparking. He could feel everything. The warmth in his bones, the heat under his skin, even the faint shiver of fear in his teammates. He tried to hold it in, to move quietly, but his nerves made him restless. Hours passed in a tense crawl. They avoided traps, slipped past one fight, but couldn't avoid them all. The first enemy team came at them from the trees, a flurry of kunai and shouts. Sasuke moved first, quick and precise, deflecting blades, weaving through enemy strikes. Naruto charged in beside him, fist clenched. When one attacker came too close, Naruto grabbed his wrist, and instantly the enemy yelped, dropping his kunai as smoke curled from his skin. The fight scattered as Naruto's power flared, even the air around him seeming to shimmer. The enemy retreated, fear in their eyes. Sakura stared at Naruto for a long moment, her lips parted, but said nothing. They moved deeper into the forest, every step heavier than the last. The sun sank behind twisted branches, turning the sky dark and green. Somewhere out there, teams screamed and vanished. The forest was eating them alive. At dusk, Team 7 found a small clearing and collapsed, catching their breath. Naruto sat with his back against a tree, chest heaving, his palms pressed to the cool earth. The ground beneath his hands warmed, steam curling in the air, but he forced himself to stay calm. Sasuke wiped blood from his lip, eyes still burning with adrenaline. Whatever you did back there, keep doing it. Naruto tried to laugh, but it sounded hollow. Yeah, well, you're welcome. Sakura sat nearby, hugging her knees. She watched Naruto out of the corner of her eye, but didn't look away this time. How do you do that? She asked quietly, voice softer than the wind. Naruto shrugged, forcing a smile. Just lucky, I guess. But as night fell, and the world shrank to the circle of their campfire, Naruto stared into the flames, questions burning in his mind. He didn't feel lucky. He felt like a fuse, burning towards something unknown. Above them, the forest creaked and sighed, hiding 1,000 threats in every shadow. Naruto pulled his jacket tighter, listening to the night and the slow, steady thrum of magma beneath his skin. Tomorrow would come, and with it, new dangers. But for now, Team 7 was still together, and Naruto, different, powerful, and uncertain, was right where he wanted to be. Chapter 7. Tensions and Sparks. Morning came gray and thick with fog, the air so damp it felt like the forest was breathing. Naruto awoke to the sound of distant screeches, his heart already pounding. He checked his hands. They felt warm but steady, the magma inside quiet, for now. Sasuke was already up, scouting the edge of the clearing with sharp eyes. Sakura sat cross-legged nearby, eyes red-rimmed but determined, clutching the team scroll in her lap like it was a lifeline. Everyone get enough sleep? Naruto joked, though his voice sounded smaller than he'd meant. No one laughed. Sasuke's gaze flicked to him, cool and unreadable. We need to keep moving. We're a target now. He was right. The memory of the frightened enemy team from the day before lingered. News of Naruto's power would travel fast in a place like this, and other teams would be coming for them. Some out of fear, others out of curiosity, maybe even envy. They packed up, moving quickly, weaving between the tangled roots and fallen logs, keeping low and silent. The forest seemed to press in tighter with every step. The first attack came just before noon. Explosive tags detonated, sending shrapnel and smoke through the undergrowth. A team of grass ninja, 3 of them, faces painted and grins wide, moved in from all sides. Naruto's heart hammered. He could feel his temperature rising, the magma in his chest responding to his panic. But he remembered Kakashi's words. Power draws attention, and not all of it is friendly. Sasuke dodged a hail of kunai, countering with a burst of shuriken. Sakura ducked behind a tree, hands shaking but ready with a kunai. Naruto found himself face to face with one of the attackers, a kunai pressed to his throat. He froze, breath shallow, feeling the enemy's blade dig into his skin. But the fear gave way to something else. Anger, sharp and hot. Not just at the enemy, but at the doubt that had followed him since he ate that strange fruit. He wanted to prove he belonged here. Without thinking, he grabbed the attacker's wrist. His skin flared, heat radiating through his palm, and the kunai clattered to the ground as the enemy yelped, pulling back, skin scorched. In that moment, the others hesitated, just long enough for Sasuke to sweep in, knocking 2 more to the ground. Sakura threw herself into the fight, her courage fierce even if her strikes were wild. The grass team retreated, cursing and nursing burns, vanishing back into the trees. Silence fell again, heavy and charged. Sasuke looked at Naruto, eyes narrowed, breathing hard. "You're getting reckless." Naruto bristled. "I was helping." "Helping? You nearly lost control." Sasuke snapped back. "You could have burned the whole forest down. Or us." Sakura stepped between them, her voice strained but steady. "Stop it. We have enough problems without fighting each other." Naruto looked away, his fists clenched, heat crackling in his veins. He didn't want to admit how close he'd come to letting go, to letting the power run wild. They moved on in uneasy silence. The sun crept higher, shadows shifting with every step. They saw other teams, some hiding, some fighting, a few too beaten to move. The Forest of Death was living up to its name. As the day wore on, Naruto grew more aware of his teammates. Sasuke was driven, always pushing forward, always testing himself and the limits of those around him. Sakura was braver than he'd ever given her credit for. Her nerves were raw, but she never backed down. And Naruto himself? He was changing. He could feel it, deep in his bones, like the magma inside was changing who he was, not just what he could do. There were moments when he wanted to let it loose, to show everyone what he was capable of. But there was fear, fear that he'd go too far, and that no one would be able to pull him back. As dusk fell, they stopped again, exhausted. Sakura tended to their scrapes and bruises in silence. Sasuke kept watch. Naruto sat apart, staring at his hands, the memory of burning flesh and terrified faces playing in his mind. He wished someone would say something, anything, to make the fear go away. Instead, he was left with the hiss of wind through leaves, the distant cries of unseen creatures, and the slow, restless churn of magma under his skin. Night came fast and thick. The fire was small, their voices quieter still. But somewhere in the dark, Naruto promised himself, tomorrow, he'd find a way to control it. He had to, if he wanted to protect his team, his dream, and maybe, just maybe, himself. Chapter 8. The Serpent's Shadow. The air in the Forest of Death felt different, heavier, colder. By the third day, the trees seemed to lean closer, the shadows sharper. Every sense was on edge. Team 7 moved in tense silence, alert for anything that moved. Their food was running low. The scroll, hidden in Sakura's pouch, felt like a magnet drawing trouble their way. The afternoon sun barely made it through the leaves when everything changed. A low, unnatural wind swept through the clearing, sending chills down Naruto's spine. He barely had time to react before a monstrous snake crashed through the undergrowth, scales glinting, eyes wild. Sasuke was the first to move. "Sakura, get back!" he shouted, launching a hail of kunai at the beast's head. The blades bounced off, useless. Naruto didn't hesitate. He felt the magma inside respond to his fear, his anger, his determination. He darted forward, palms outstretched, the air shimmering with heat. "Hey, over here!" The snake lunged. Naruto gripped its scaly hide and focused, feeling the familiar surge of power rise. Heat radiated from his hands, so much, so fast, that steam burst from the snake's flesh. It writhed and thrashed, the stench of burning scales thick in the air. The snake reared back and vanished into the brush, leaving only the marks of scorched earth and Naruto's trembling arms. Sasuke stared at him, awe and suspicion mixed in his expression. "You keep getting stronger." Naruto wiped sweat from his brow, refusing to meet Sasuke's eyes. "Just doing my part." But the real danger was still watching, hidden. The next attack was silent, swift. From the trees came a stranger, tall, pale, with eyes that glittered gold. His smile was all wrong, too wide, too calm. Naruto froze. He'd seen strange people before, but never anyone like this. Sasuke moved to intercept, but the stranger dodged with unnatural speed. He didn't attack, not yet. He just watched, studied, as if cataloging their strengths. "You're an interesting one," he said, voice soft and oily, eyes fixed on Naruto. "What's your name, boy?" Naruto bristled, shoving down his fear. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki." "Who the hell are you?" The man's smile sharpened. "Just a passing ninja." "I couldn't help but notice the unique way you handled that snake." Sasuke stepped between them, glare icy. "Get lost. We're not interested." But the man didn't move. He watched Naruto, gaze lingering like a cold hand. "Power like yours is rare. Dangerous. People will want it. Some will fear it. Others will do anything to take it." A shiver ran down Naruto's spine, not from cold, but from the way this stranger seemed to see right through him. Before anyone could respond, the stranger lunged. Sasuke met him head-on, Sharingan spinning, but the man was impossibly fast. In a blur, he landed a blow that sent Sasuke sprawling, then turned to Naruto. Naruto tried to react, to channel his magma, but the stranger's presence sapped his courage, made it hard to breathe. He reached for his power, but this time it felt wild, unstable, a furnace on the edge of explosion. Sakura screamed, "Naruto, behind you." Naruto turned too late. The man's hand gripped his shoulder, cold and snake-like. Naruto fought to summon the magma, to burn this enemy away, but the man only laughed, the sound sending chills through the clearing. "You're not ready yet," the stranger whispered. "But soon, you'll be the most interesting thing in this village." With a burst of speed, the man vanished into the trees, leaving the scent of snakeskin and the sense of danger hanging thick in the air. Naruto dropped to his knees, gasping, the fire inside him crackling with fear and fury. Sasuke sat up, shaking, his pride wounded more than his body. Sakura rushed to check on them both, her hands trembling. No one spoke for a long time. When the silence finally broke, it was Naruto's voice, quieter than usual, but hard as stone. "We can't let him win. Whatever he wants, whatever he's after, we have to be stronger." Sasuke nodded, the challenge lighting his eyes again. Sakura didn't argue, she just moved closer, as if distance alone might keep the darkness away. The forest pressed in tighter, the world suddenly much more dangerous than before. For the first time, Naruto wondered if his power was enough, or if it would only make things worse. Chapter 9. Fever and Fire. Night settled over the forest of death, thick and suffocating. Team 7's tiny camp was a pale flicker in the gloom. One dying fire, 3 exhausted shinobi. Naruto lay curled beneath his jacket, face slick with sweat. The magma inside him felt restless, burning hotter than ever. Every breath stung his throat. His dreams twisted, filled with fire and snakes, with strangers' voices whispering about power and danger. He woke in a cold sweat, unsure if it was dawn or just the fever spinning in his mind. Sakura checked his forehead, her hands gentle but her eyes wide with worry. "You're burning up, Naruto," she whispered. "Are you sick?" Naruto shook his head, trying to play it off. "Just tired. I'll be fine." But his voice sounded hoarse, even to him. Sasuke crouched nearby, eyes never resting, as if Orochimaru might step from the shadows at any moment. He watched Naruto for a long moment before looking away. "If you slow us down, we're finished." The word stung, but Naruto knew Sasuke was right. Still, he couldn't help the wave of anger that bubbled up, at his own weakness, at the stranger who had shaken them so easily, at the magma that made him strong and fragile at the same time. They pushed on at first light, every step an effort. The air felt thicker, the shadows deeper. Naruto's fever grew worse, the magma in his veins spiking, then dropping cold. Sometimes he staggered. Once, he nearly blacked out, caught only by Sakura's quick hands. The hallucinations came in flashes, a memory of Irika's worried face, a vision of the bridge and the land of waves crumbling into lava, fleeting images of the stranger's golden eyes and forked tongue. At times, he wasn't sure if he was walking or dreaming. Sasuke and Sakura worked in uneasy tandem. Sasuke led, sharp and silent, every movement purposeful. Sakura kept close to Naruto, whispering encouragement when she thought Sasuke couldn't hear. Their worry filled the air, thick and unspoken. A sudden rustle sent the group diving for cover. Another team stumbled past, battered and bruised, not even noticing Team 7 in the brush. Naruto saw the look on their faces, fear, desperation, defeat. It mirrored how he felt inside. The day dragged on, the forest unchanging, every minute a test of will. Hunger gnawed at their bellies. Thirst burned their throats. But the memory of Orochimaru haunted them more than anything else. When they finally stopped for the night, Naruto collapsed beside the fire, his body racked with chills. He felt lost, adrift between the magma's heat and the cold terror left behind by the stranger in the woods. Sakura knelt beside him, pulling her jacket over his shoulders. "Just rest, okay?" Her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. He tried to thank her, but all that came out was a croak. His eyes slid closed, and the world narrowed to fevered dreams and the pulse of magma in his chest. Somewhere in the darkness, he heard voices again, his own doubts mixing with memories of the stranger's threat. People will want it. Some will fear it. Others will do anything to take it. He woke before dawn, gasping, the fever finally breaking. He felt lighter, clearer, the fire inside him settling for the first time in days. Sasuke crouched by the fire, staring into the embers. "You okay now?" Naruto sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Yeah, I think so." Sasuke nodded, then looked away. "Good. We're getting close to the tower. Try not to die before then." Sakura smiled, relief softening her features. Just a little farther, Naruto. We can make it. As Team 7 packed up and headed deeper into the forest, Naruto glanced back at the shadows. He still didn't know what the magma inside him would become, or what Orochimaru really wanted. But he did know this. As long as his friends were by his side, he wouldn't give in. Not to fear, not to doubt, not to anyone who tried to take what he'd fought so hard to protect. They moved as one, their shadows long in the morning light, heading for the tower and whatever waited beyond. Chapter 10. Bonds of Fire. By the time Team 7 caught sight of the looming tower at the center of the Forest of Death, Naruto felt like he'd lived a year inside a handful of days. His legs ached, his mouth was dry, and a fine layer of dirt and sweat covered every inch of his skin. But the magma in his veins was calm, settled, almost peaceful, as if it had burned out the worst of his fear. They paused at the edge of the clearing, hidden in the tangled roots. The sun was setting, painting the sky with stripes of orange and purple, turning the tower's shadow long and thin. Almost there, Sasuke muttered. He kept his face blank, but even he couldn't hide the exhaustion in his eyes. Sakura just nodded, squeezing the scroll tight against her chest. Naruto let out a slow breath and pushed forward, leading the way. Each step felt heavy, but the thought of failing now was unbearable. Not after everything they'd faced. Snakes, illusions, their own doubts. They moved as quietly as they could, sticking to the trees, but the last stretch was never going to be easy. Another team, Team Sound, waited for them in the clearing, blocking their path with wide grins and 2 casual shrugs. Naruto could feel the tension ripple through his team. For a moment, no one moved. Then the Sound Ninja struck, a blur of fists and chakra, their attacks loud and fast. The fight was wild, desperate. Naruto dodged a blow that cracked the earth, heat building under his skin, warning him not to let go. Not here, not with Sakura and Sasuke so close. Sasuke fought with a ferocity Naruto hadn't seen before. Every move was sharper, more deliberate. Sakura held her ground, refusing to give up the scroll, even as a blast of sound knocked her to her knees. Naruto felt his temper snap. The magma inside flared, pushing at the limits of his control. The world seemed to slow as he drew that power in, focusing on what mattered: his teammates, their safety, the promise he'd made to himself. He met the Sound Ninja's eyes and unleashed just enough of his heat, turning their attacks aside, forcing them back with a wave of steam and scorched earth, but not letting it consume him. The fight ended as suddenly as it began, the enemy retreating into the shadows, wary and shaken. Breathless, Naruto looked at Sasuke and Sakura. "You guys okay?" Sakura brushed a cut on her cheek, managing a tired smile. "I'm fine," Sasuke nodded, a grudging respect in his gaze. "Not bad, Naruto." They reached the tower's doors as the sky went dark. Inside, the silence was almost a relief. No enemies, no traps, just the 3 of them, battered but alive. When the proctors took their scrolls and checked their condition, Sakura couldn't stop herself from crying, half relief, half joy. Naruto laughed, a real, honest laugh, the weight finally sliding from his shoulders. Sasuke even allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. That night, as they rested in the tower, Naruto found himself unable to sleep. He wandered the halls, listening to the quiet. Halfway down a shadowed corridor, he found Kurenai leaning against a window, watching the stars. Her presence was calming, a reminder of the village waiting outside the forest. She glanced at him, her expression kind. "You survived," she said quietly. "That's more than most." Naruto nodded, unsure what to say. For the first time in days, he let his guard down, letting his exhaustion and doubt show. Kurenai didn't offer empty encouragement. Instead, she listened, really listened, as Naruto told her, haltingly, about the fire inside him, the fear, the anger, the loneliness that hadn't quite gone away even with all his power. When he finished, Kurenai placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You aren't alone, Naruto. Power is only as dangerous as the heart that holds it. And yours is stronger than you think." The words lingered long after she'd gone. Naruto stood at the window, watching the first hints of dawn break through the darkness, feeling, for the first time, like the warmth inside him might actually be a blessing. The next stage of the exams was waiting. So were new enemies, new challenges, and questions he didn't know how to answer. But tonight, at least, he believed he could face whatever came next, and not just for himself, but for his team, and for the bonds that, like fire, could light even the darkest forest. Chapter 11. The siege begins. The village pulsed with excitement as the day of the Chunin exams finals dawned bright and clear. Crowds filled the streets, vendors hawked food and trinkets, and the stadium buzzed with nervous energy. For Naruto, walking through the gates was like stepping onto a stage. Every eye in the stands seemed to follow him, some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled fear. He felt the magma deep inside simmer with anticipation and anxiety. This was what he'd always dreamed of, to be noticed, to matter. But there was a weight to it now, a responsibility, a risk. He couldn't forget the way Kurenai's words had steadied him in the tower, or the memory of Orochimaru's chilling promise. In the competitors' area, Naruto glanced at his friends. Sasuke, as cool and focused as ever. Sakura, trying to mask her nerves with determination. Shikamaru, looking for the nearest exit. The stands were packed with villagers, foreign ninja, and dignitaries from every corner of the shinobi world. The Hokage watched from his high seat, his presence a constant reminder of everything Naruto wanted to protect. The first matches were fast and brutal, ninja from sand and sound revealing tricks no one had seen before. When Naruto's turn came, he faced Neji Hyuga. The crowd hushed as they squared off. Neji's eyes were cold, almost pitying. Fate can't be changed, Naruto. You don't belong here. Naruto felt his temper flare, but this time, he controlled it. He remembered the heat, the danger, the fear of hurting someone by accident. He planted his feet and stared Neji down. I make my own fate. The battle was fierce, Neji's gentle fist versus Naruto's unpredictable, fiery bursts. Naruto took hits, staggering under Neji's precise blows, but he kept getting back up. The magma in his blood answered every insult, every doubt, every time Neji tried to write his story for him. At the end, when Neji's chakra sealed his tenketsu and tried to finish it, Naruto found his resolve. He let the magma rise, controlling it, shaping it, not letting it consume him. Steam hissed from his skin as he forced Neji back, finally landing a punch that knocked the Hyuga prodigy out of the ring. The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some stared in awe, some looked uneasy. Naruto took it all in, heart pounding, chest heaving. He turned, searching the stands for Kurenai. She was there, watching, a small, proud smile on her lips. Their eyes met for a heartbeat, long enough to remind him who he was fighting for. But the moment shattered. A distant explosion rattled the stadium. Sand and sound ninja moved at once, throwing off their disguises, summoning monsters and jutsu, plunging the arena into chaos. Orochimaru's plan had begun. Naruto's mind snapped into focus. He scanned for Sakura, for Sasuke, relief surging when he found them. Sakura was fighting off a sound ninja with trembling hands. Sasuke had already vanished, chasing a retreating Gaara into the forest. The sky darkened with smoke and flame. Giant snakes crashed through the village walls. Screams echoed. Umbu swarmed. Somewhere, the Hokage's voice roared orders, calling the village to arms. Naruto felt something shift inside him, a sense of responsibility, of destiny. This wasn't just about the exam anymore. This was about survival, about saving everything he'd come to love. He ran to Sakura, helping her up, guarding her back with a wall of heat that sent enemy kunai melting in the air. She clung to him for a moment, then nodded, regaining her strength. Together, they fought toward the stadium gates, dodging collapsing stands and enemy jutsu. Kakashi appeared in a blur, battered but alive. Find Sasuke, he ordered, voice urgent but steady. And Naruto, don't hold back. Protect your friends. Protect this village. Naruto nodded, feeling the magma in his veins rise like a living thing, more powerful than ever, but finally under his control. As he leapt into the burning streets, searching for Sasuke, fighting for Konoha, Naruto realized this was what it meant to be a shinobi. Not the power, not the applause, but standing up when it mattered most, for the people who mattered most. The village was under siege. The night was full of fire, and Naruto was ready to burn brighter than ever before. End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12. The Third's Last Stand. Smoke choked the sky above Konoha. The stadium was in ruins, burning in places, littered with broken stone and bloodied sand. Naruto ran through the chaos, Sakura at his side, every breath sharp with ash and fear. Explosions shook the ground. Shadows darted through the flames, enemy ninja, terrified villagers, and shinobi fighting for their lives. Find Sasuke, Kakashi had said. But everywhere Naruto turned, there was another battle, another enemy. He had never felt so needed and so helpless at once. They fought their way through the streets. Sakura covered his back, swinging her kunai with desperate resolve. Naruto unleashed controlled bursts of heat, melting blades, and sending enemy shinobi stumbling away in pain and panic. He could feel himself treading the edge between restraint and destruction. Then, above the rooftops, a monstrous snake tore through the market district, its scales battered but deadly. Sand Ninja rode its back, raining down shuriken and poison. The ground split beneath the beast as it moved toward the heart of the village, the Hokage's mansion. Naruto froze, the fire in his chest blazing to life. "That's where the old man is," he whispered, his heart squeezing tight. Sakura looked at him, face streaked with dirt and sweat. "Naruto, what do we do?" He swallowed, feeling the fear and anger crash together inside him. "We save the village. We save everyone we can." They sprinted toward the mansion, dodging falling debris, vaulting broken carts, pushing through terrified villagers. All the while, the smoke thickened, the screams grew louder, and the heat, his heat, grew almost unbearable. When they reached the square, the scene stopped them cold. The third Hokage stood atop the roof, his staff in hand, facing Orochimaru. The sand and snake-like grin was terrifying, his eyes wild with triumph. Around them, for Sound Ninja had erected a glowing barrier, an impenetrable wall of chakra, cutting the old man off from help. Naruto watched, fist clenched, as the battle raged overhead. The Hokage fought with all his strength, summoning shadow clones, wielding fire and earth, and the will of decades spent protecting the village. Orochimaru taunted him, dancing between blows, mocking every effort, his blade flashing in the smoky light. The Hokage was growing tired. Each movement was slower, every strike more desperate. Naruto could see it. Everyone could see it. The Sandaime was running out of time. The barrier glowed brighter, blinding in the gloom. Naruto slammed his fists against it, screaming, "Let me through. Let me help him." His palms burned with raw energy, the heat building, crackling, threatening to spill over. Inside the barrier, Orochimaru lunged, his sword biting deep. The Hokage staggered, blood pooling at his feet. But with a last, mighty effort, he began the seals for the Reaper Death Seal, a forbidden jutsu to pull Orochimaru's soul from his body, even at the cost of his own life. Orochimaru's face twisted in fear and rage as the spectral arms of the Reaper closed in. The Hokage's eyes locked with Naruto's through the glowing wall, just for a heartbeat, a silent apology, a final goodbye, a passing of the torch. Naruto felt something in him shatter. The magma exploded, heat ripped through his body, the air distorting, the earth around him turning to molten stone. The barrier flickered, then warped under the impossible force. Sakura fell back, shielding her eyes. Enemy ninja fled, terrified of the sudden, volcanic burst. For a moment, Naruto was at the center of a storm, pure, blinding power, rage and sorrow and loss burning brighter than the sun. He screamed, not just with his voice, but with everything he was. Orochimaru stumbled as the Hokage's hands closed around him. But with a desperate act, the snake Sannin managed to escape the Reaper's full grasp, leaving his arms ruined but his life intact. The Hokage collapsed, the barrier fading as the jutsu ended. Orochimaru disappeared into the ruins, carried away by his allies. Naruto rushed to the rooftop, falling to his knees beside the old man. The Hokage smiled, blood on his lips. "You did well, Naruto. Protect them, all of them." The life faded from his eyes, leaving only peace behind. Naruto wept, the magma inside him finally cooling to a deep, aching emptiness. He looked out over the burning village, his village, and swore that no one would ever suffer like this again. Sakura put a trembling hand on his shoulder. He took a shaky breath, letting the pain settle, feeling the weight of a new promise settle on his heart. All around them, the village burned. But the fire in Naruto's soul burned brighter still, not for revenge, but for every person who needed someone to stand and fight for them, no matter the cost. Chapter 13, Aftermath and Ashes. The fires finally died, but the village was far from quiet. Smoke lingered over Konoha for days, drifting in lazy coils above broken rooftops and scorched streets. The smell of burning wood and bitter loss clung to everything. The invasion was over, but the cost was carved into every stone and every heart. Naruto wandered the battered streets in a daze, watching shinobi and civilians working side by side to clear rubble, patch wounds, and count the missing. His arms still ached from the power he'd unleashed. His throat was raw from shouting, crying, in the heat that had torn through him. He should have felt proud for what he'd done to defend the village, but all he felt was empty. He saw familiar faces everywhere, friends and rivals alike, all changed by what they'd survived. Sakura moved among the wounded, hair tied back, face set with grim determination as she patched wounds and offered comfort to anyone who needed it. Sasuke was distant, avoiding everyone's gaze, as if he could outrun the pain by working twice as hard. Kakashi moved with the tired air of a man who'd lost too much, but he never let his team out of his sight. Whenever Naruto looked up, Kakashi was there, watchful, silent, but steady as a rock. It helped, even when words failed. The funeral for the third Hokage drew the entire village together. The square was crowded, silent except for the quiet weeping of those who'd lost family. Naruto stood near the front, his hands clenched, Konoha's headband heavy on his brow. The third's photo sat at the altar, surrounded by flowers and old scrolls, a reminder of the warmth and patience that had defined his rule. Tears pricked Naruto's eyes, but he refused to look away. He wanted to remember everything: the old man's smile, the way he believed in Naruto when no one else did, the promise he'd left behind. As the crowd filed away, Naruto stayed behind. The sun was low, shadows long. He bowed his head, hands in his pockets, and let the sadness spill over. He felt a gentle touch on his arm. Kurenai stood beside him, her eyes red but kind. "He was proud of you, Naruto. More than you know." Naruto blinked, fighting the lump in his throat. "I wasn't strong enough. If I'd been faster or stronger, maybe." Kurenai shook her head. "He saw your heart. That's what made you strong. The village needs you now more than ever." For a long moment, Naruto just breathed, letting her words settle in. The pain didn't disappear, but it shifted, lighter, somehow shared. As the days went on, the village began to heal. People rebuilt homes and shops, replaced lost windows, scrubbed scorch marks from the stones. The Hokage monument watched over them, silent and scarred, but still standing. Naruto threw himself into the work, helping wherever he could. He and his friends patched roofs, carried supplies, and comforted frightened children. Every act, no matter how small, felt like a piece of something bigger, a way to stitch the village and himself back together. At night, when exhaustion threatened to swallow him, Naruto found himself seeking out the quiet places: the old bridge, the quiet clearing in the woods, or the silent corridors of the Hokage's mansion. Sometimes Kurenai would find him, and they'd sit together in comfortable silence, sharing grief and hope in equal measure. The loss of the third Hokage left a hole in Konoha, but in that emptiness, new bonds were forming. Tighter, stronger, forged by fire and sorrow. Naruto still felt the magma inside him, always simmering, but it was different now. It was a reminder of what he'd survived, and a promise of what he could become. He didn't know what came next. The village would have a new Hokage soon, new threats and challenges would rise, and the ache of loss would linger. But as he stood in the morning light, feeling the warmth on his skin, Naruto knew he wasn't alone, not anymore. He was part of this village, its pain and its hope, and whatever the future held, he would face it with all the fire in his heart. Chapter 14: Journey of the Flame. The morning air in Konoha was thick with change. The village still bore its scars: cracked walls, empty windows, the ache of loss. But everywhere Naruto looked, there was life. New roofs gleamed in the sunlight, the chatter of children returned to the streets, and hope, fragile but persistent, found its way back into the faces of his friends. Naruto's own heart felt lighter. He'd worked through the pain, thrown himself into rebuilding, tried to be the kind of ninja the third would have been proud of. But the questions lingered. What would happen now? Who would lead the village? And what would become of the fire inside him? He didn't have to wait long for answers. Jiraiya found him early one morning, perched on the Hokage monument, legs swinging over the edge. The old sage's hair shone silver in the dawn, his smile broad but knowing. "Ready for a new adventure, kid?" Jiraiya asked, dropping beside him with a thud. Naruto grinned, nerves and excitement mixing in his chest. "What kind of adventure?" "We're going to find someone very important, the only person who can take up the Hokage's hat now. Tsunade." Naruto's pulse quickened. "The legendary Sannin? But why me?" Jiraiya winked. "Because you're stubborn, loud, and impossible to ignore. And because you're the only one I trust to watch my back out there." Before they could leave, a quiet voice stopped them at the gate. Kurenai stood with her arms folded, eyes serious, but soft when she looked at Naruto. "I want to help," she said. "If there are threats waiting for you, and there will be, you shouldn't face them alone." Jiraiya eyed her with amusement. "You sure you're ready for a road trip with these two?" Kurenai's lips twitched into a smile. "I'll keep them both out of trouble." Naruto couldn't help but smile, a warmth blooming in his chest that had nothing to do with his powers. They set off together, leaving the rebuilt gates of Konoha behind, following the winding roads east. The world outside the village felt bigger, wilder. Forests stretched to the horizon, mountains loomed in the distance, and strange new smells drifted on every breeze. Naruto was restless. He wanted to test his power, to see how far he could push the magma fruit's gifts without losing control. But Jiraiya was strict, teaching him meditation, control, new ways to focus his chakra. "Your power's like a volcano," Jiraiya said, watching Naruto try and fail to melt a boulder in half. "You can't let it erupt every time you get excited. You have to direct it, shape it." It was hard. Naruto's hands shook with frustration sometimes. The heat inside threatened to burst free, and once or twice he left a small crater in the woods, drawing complaints from local wildlife and an amused sigh from Kurenai. But the road had its joys, too. There were ramen stands in tiny villages, river crossings where Jiraiya made them all laugh with stories, nights around the campfire where Kurenai quietly taught Naruto the basics of Genjutsu resistance, her voice steady and calm. Naruto listened. He tried. When he failed, he tried again. And slowly, the fire in him stopped feeling like a burden. It began to feel like a tool, a part of him, not something to be feared. They faced threats, too. Rogue ninja and thieves, strange creatures lurking in the brush. Once, when a trio of missing men attacked on a lonely road, Naruto channeled his magma power with focus, driving their enemies away with a wall of heat that protected his friends, not just scorched the earth. Kurenai put a hand on his shoulder after that fight. "You did well," she said, her gaze lingering. "You're learning to control it." Jiraiya grinned, clapping him on the back. "Told you he could do it." Night fell on the road, and Naruto stared up at the stars, tired but content. The pain of loss still lingered, but the world was big and full of new chances. He felt Kurenai sit beside him, silent for a moment before speaking. "I think the old man would have been proud," she said. Naruto smiled, feeling the warmth of the campfire, of the journey, of something growing stronger than fear. He didn't know what waited at the end of the road, but as long as he kept moving forward, with friends by his side and fire in his heart, he was ready to find out. Chapter 15. Clash in Tanzaka Town. The journey led them to Tanzaka Town, a place unlike any Naruto had seen. Neon lanterns blazed against the twilight sky. Noisy markets overflowed with travelers, gamblers, and the promise of fortunes won and lost. The excitement was contagious, but Jiraiya's posture turned wary as they moved through the busy streets. "Tsunade likes to keep people guessing," Jiraiya warned, his eyes scanning the crowds. "But she's here somewhere. Stay sharp." Naruto nodded, fists clenched at his sides, feeling the thrum of magma in his veins. He couldn't tell if it was anticipation or nerves or both. They found her in a gambling hall, sitting at a table stacked with empty sake cups, golden hair loose around her shoulders, laughter bright and bold as she tossed dice with strangers. She was exactly as the stories had promised, confident, beautiful, and impossible to ignore. Jiraiya stepped forward first, announcing himself with a theatrical bow. "Tsunade, still as lucky as ever, I see." She eyed him, amusement and suspicion mixing in her gaze. "Jiraiya, I should have known you'd show up eventually." Her eyes flickered to Naruto, then to Kurenai. Curiosity piqued. "And you've brought company?" Before Jiraiya could answer, a commotion erupted outside, shouts, crashing glass, then a pulse of killing intent that sent gamblers diving for cover. Naruto's heart leapt into his throat. He knew that feeling. Orochimaru. The doors burst open and Orochimaru entered, flanked by Kabuto. His smile was all malice and hunger, his ruined arms covered by long sleeves. The hall seemed to shrink around him. "Tsunade," he purred. "I've come with a proposition." Tsunade stood, all pretense of levity gone. Her voice was cold. "You have some nerve." Jiraiya moved to her side, Kurenai positioning herself protectively in front of Naruto. Kabuto's eyes landed on Naruto, lingering a moment too long. Orochimaru's gaze was calculating. "You have power, Naruto Uzumaki. Power I could use. But not today." He turned back to Tsunade, making his twisted offer. "Heal my arms, and I'll give you what you want most." The room grew tense, all eyes on Tsunade as she struggled with her answer. Naruto felt anger and confusion boil up inside him. Wasn't this the woman they'd come to save the village? Why was she even hesitating? Kabuto moved fast, a blur of chakra scalpels and needles, aiming straight for Tsunade. Jiraiya intercepted him, the two Sannin clashing in a storm of strength and jutsu. Naruto found himself face to face with Kabuto, the Medicnine's eyes glinting with anticipation. "Let's see what that power of yours can do." The fight was chaos. Kabuto was faster and more skilled than Naruto expected, dodging bursts of magma, always a step ahead. But this time, Naruto was different, focused, remembering everything he'd learned on the road. When Kabuto tried to cut him with a chakra blade, Naruto turned the attack aside with a wave of superheated steam. The tiles melted under his feet, but Naruto held the power back, channeling it with control. Kurenai fought at his side, weaving Jinjutsu that forced Kabuto to stumble, giving Naruto the opening he needed. With a surge of heat, Naruto caught Kabuto's arm, burning through his sleeve. Kabuto hissed in pain, tearing free, and retreated to Orochimaru's side. Meanwhile, Tsunade's eyes flickered between the chaos, Naruto's power, and the desperate courage in his face. She saw not a child, but a shinobi fighting for his friends. Orochimaru, wounded but grinning, spat one last threat. "This isn't over. Konoha will fall, with or without your help." He and Kabuto vanished, leaving the gambling hall ruined, tiles scorched, and the tension broken. For a long moment, the only sound was Naruto's ragged breathing. He looked to Tsunade, pleading, "You're the only one who can help Konoha. Please, we need you." Tsunade gazed at him, and in her eyes, Naruto saw something shift. The weight of old grief, old fear, giving way to something new. Maybe hope. Jiraiya placed a hand on her shoulder. "What do you say, Tsunade? Will you come home?" She looked from Jiraiya to Kurenai to Naruto, his clothes singed, his face defiant but earnest. Finally, Tsunade smiled, small but real. "Yeah, I'll come home." Naruto felt relief flood through him, mingling with pride. The road ahead would still be hard, but for the first time since the Hokage's funeral, it felt like the world was opening up again. Outside, the night air was cool, the lanterns shining brighter than before. Naruto stood with his friends, new and old, and watched as hope began to return, one small promise at a time. Chapter 16, Will of Fire. The journey home began at sunrise. Tsunade, her decision made, walked at the front of the group, golden hair swaying in the breeze. Jiraiya strolled beside her, an old but comfortable rivalry sparking between them. Kurenai walked on Naruto's other side, quiet but always attentive. For Naruto, every step felt lighter than before. The weight that had pressed on his heart since the invasion had eased, replaced by something brighter, a sense of purpose and, for the first time in a long while, real hope. Konoha was waiting for them. The village had lost much, but now it would gain someone legendary. And maybe, just maybe, Naruto thought, they'd all find some healing, too. They made camp the first night under a canopy of stars. Naruto couldn't sleep. The energy inside him felt alive, burning but not threatening to burst. Kurenai sat nearby, her silhouette softened by the firelight. She noticed his restlessness and joined him at the edge of the clearing. "Can't sleep?" she asked. Naruto shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "It's like everything's changing. I don't know if I'm ready." Kurenai smiled softly. "Change is part of being a ninja. It's scary, but you don't have to face it alone." He was quiet for a moment, letting the words settle in. "You're not scared of me?" She shook her head, her gaze steady. "No, Naruto. I see who you are, your heart, your strength. I trust you." That warmth inside him, the magma that once felt wild and dangerous, simmered now as something gentler. He met her eyes, the crackle of the campfire reflected there, and nodded. "Thanks, Kurenai-sensei, for believing in me." She smiled, and they sat in silence, the quiet more comfortable than any words. In the morning, they pressed onward, Tsunade setting a brisk pace. As they traveled, she tested Naruto, curious about his new abilities. She tossed rocks at him, challenged him to spar, asked questions about the magma powers he barely understood. Each time, Naruto responded with a little more control, a little more focus. Sometimes he stumbled, but Jiraiya and Kurenai always helped him up. At a river crossing, Tsunade watched as Naruto hesitated at the water's edge, the memory of weakness clinging to him. She crossed her arms. "You can't avoid your limits forever. Learn to work with them." Naruto gritted his teeth, channeling heat just enough to steam the water without emptying his strength. The crossing was rough, but he made it, chest heaving, pride shining in his eyes. Tsunade clapped him on the back, almost knocking him into the mud. "Not bad, brat. Maybe there's more to you than meets the eye." For Naruto, the compliment meant everything. The rest of the journey passed in a blur of training, laughter, and the quiet comfort of friends who believed in him. As Konoha's gates appeared on the horizon, the group paused for a moment, taking in the sight of home after so much time away. They were greeted at the gates by villagers and shinobi alike, some weary, some cautious, but all grateful. When Tsunade stepped forward, the crowd erupted in cheers. Hope returned to faces that had nearly forgotten how to smile. Later that day, Tsunade was officially named the 5th Hokage. The ceremony was simple, but powerful. She stood on the same balcony where the third one spoke, her voice steady and clear. Konoha has survived darkness before, and it will again. We rebuild not just our village, but our hearts. That is the will of fire. Naruto watched from the crowd, Kurenai standing quietly beside him. He felt the magma inside, but now it was a source of pride, not just power. He understood, finally, that it wasn't the fire alone that made him strong. It was the people who cared, the bonds that refused to break, even in the face of loss. That night, as lanterns lit up the village and laughter returned to the streets, Naruto stood on the rooftops and gazed up at the stars. Kurenai found him there, silent and content. She didn't need to say anything. Her presence was enough. Konoha was healing, and so was he. The future was uncertain, but Naruto finally felt ready to face it, fire and all. Chapter 17. Broken Bonds. The village buzzed with new life under Tsunade's leadership. Old wounds had begun to heal. Laughter and hope were slowly returning to Konoha's streets. But beneath the surface, shadows lingered. Naruto felt it most whenever he saw Sasuke. There was a distance now, sharper than ever. Sasuke threw himself into training with reckless focus, pushing his body and mind past exhaustion. The mark Orochimaru had branded on his neck, a constant reminder of the encounter in the Forest of Death, seemed to burn brighter with each passing day. He barely spoke, even to his teammates, and when he did, there was a hardness in his eyes Naruto hadn't seen before. They were sparring again, another round in the endless series of matches Kakashi put them through. Sakura watched from the sidelines, worry creasing her brow. Naruto could feel the magma in his veins, the power that made him different, but today he held it back. He wanted this fight to be about more than strength. But Sasuke wasn't interested in holding back. He attacked with speed and precision, the Sharingan spinning, his moves sharper, more dangerous. Naruto dodged, blocked, returned every blow, but the anger behind Sasuke's strikes was new, wild, desperate. Finally, Sasuke landed a kick that sent Naruto sprawling in the dust. He stood over him, chest heaving, eyes blazing with frustration. "Why?" Sasuke demanded. "Why do you keep getting stronger? Why is it always you?" Naruto climbed to his feet, wiping blood from his lip. He stared at Sasuke, not with anger, but with hurt. "I'm not your enemy, Sasuke. I'm your friend." For a moment, something flickered in Sasuke's expression, regret, maybe, or longing. But it vanished, replaced by a cold, stubborn glare. "You can't understand. You never will." Sakura ran to Naruto's side as Sasuke stormed away. She looked torn between chasing after Sasuke and staying with Naruto. In the end, she did neither, standing frozen between her teammates, powerless to bridge the growing gap. Later that day, the village learned the truth. Sasuke was gone. His room was empty, his belongings untouched, but there was no doubt he had left Konoha. Word spread quickly. Tsunade called a meeting of the most trusted ninja. The room was thick with tension as she laid out the mission. "Sasuke Uchiha has defected. He's headed for Orochimaru. We cannot let him reach the enemy. I'm forming a team. Naruto, you're leading it." Naruto's heart pounded, half from fear, half from guilt. This was his friend, his rival, and now, his responsibility. Kakashi placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Bring him back, Naruto. No matter what." Naruto nodded, jaw set. "I will." He met with the others who would join him. Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, Niji, and for the first time, the group felt both young and impossibly old, burdened by what was at stake. Kurenai found Naruto before he left. Her eyes were soft but steady. "Be careful. Remember who you are and what you fight for." Naruto swallowed his fear, letting her words settle in his heart. "Thank you. I won't let you down." As the team set out, running through the gates and into the wild unknown, Naruto felt the magma stir inside him, hot, insistent, not just power but purpose. He was fighting for Sasuke, for Konoha, and for every bond he'd made along the way. The road ahead was dangerous, but Naruto was ready to face it, no matter how much it burned. Chapter 18. Magma and Lightning. The forest felt different as the team raced after Sasuke. Every shadow sharper, every sound heavier. There was no time to hesitate. Shikamaru led with quick strategy. Kiba sniffed the air for Sasuke's trail, and Niji's Byakugan scanned ahead for ambushes. Naruto ran near the front, the magma in his veins humming with every step, every fear, every memory. They didn't get far before the enemy found them. The sound came from all directions, masked and hungry for battle. The first clash was a blur, traps, jutsu, curses flying through the trees. Shikamaru barked orders, splitting the team to draw the enemies apart. One by one, The retrieval team faced the Sound Ninja's deadly, twisted powers, webs that could not be cut, walls of bone, sound that shattered bones from within. Naruto wanted to fight every battle, but he couldn't be everywhere at once. Each time he turned to help, a teammate insisted, "Go. We'll catch up. Bring Sasuke back." Their faith in him burned in his chest. He pressed on, the air thick with smoke and fallen leaves. When he finally caught sight of Sasuke, it was at the river's edge, the place called the Valley of the End. Two colossal statues stood as silent witnesses, Madara and Hashirama, the founders of the village. The sky above was darkening, storm clouds swirling as if the world itself felt what was coming. Sasuke stood in the water, his back to Naruto, the curse mark burning on his neck, black flame-like markings snaking down his arm. For a moment, all Naruto saw was the boy he called friend, the rival he couldn't bear to lose. "Sasuke," he shouted, voice cracking. "Why are you doing this? Why are you leaving?" Sasuke didn't turn. His voice was cold, tired, full of hurt. "You wouldn't understand. I have to do this, Naruto. For my family. For revenge." Naruto waded into the water, fist clenched. "That's not the only thing that matters. We're your friends, your team. I need you. Konoha needs you." Sasuke spun, Sharingan blazing red. "You think I'm weak because I stay? Because I depend on you? Orochimaru promises power. Power to get my revenge. I can't turn away." Naruto shook his head, pain and anger mixing inside, the magma flaring in his chest. "You don't have to do this alone. I won't let you." The fight erupted in a heartbeat, Sasuke lunging, fists and feet flying. Naruto met him head-on, magma crackling at his touch, steam hissing as water met fire. Lightning arced from Sasuke's hands, the Chidori flashing bright and sharp. Naruto countered with a wave of heat, the river boiling at their feet. They clashed again and again, jutsu and taijutsu merging into a wild, desperate dance. Naruto felt every punch, every word that went unspoken between them. He was fighting for more than victory. He was fighting for everything they'd shared. Sasuke's eyes were wild, desperate. He called on the curse mark, his power spiraling higher, his body changing, a monstrous chakra darkening the air. Naruto answered with the magma, calling up everything he'd learned, the focus, the restraint, the will not to lose himself even as the fire roared. The battle shattered the valley. Statues cracked, water steamed, lightning and magma colliding in a storm that shook the very earth. In the end, both were battered, bloodied, kneeling in the mud. Sasuke's voice broke, low and lost. "Why do you care so much, Naruto? Why won't you give up on me?" Naruto's answer was raw, fierce, and true. "Because you're my friend. Because I know what it's like to be alone. Because someone once believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. I won't let you go." For a heartbeat, Sasuke hesitated. Then he surged forward, the Chidori in his hand meeting Naruto's magma-charged punch in a clash that sent a shockwave through the valley. When the dust settled, Sasuke stood over Naruto, trembling. He looked down, pain twisting his features. I have to do this." He turned and walked away, leaving Naruto in the rain, battered and broken, but refusing to give in to despair. Naruto's vision blurred as the world spun, his body aching, the fire inside banked to coals. But even through the pain, he knew this fight wasn't over. He had made a promise, to himself, to Sasuke, to everyone who'd ever believed in him. No matter how much it burned, he would not let that bond be broken. Chapter 19. Ashes and Forgiveness. The valley was silent once the storm of battle faded. Naruto lay in the mud, the last of his strength seeping out with the rain. The heat inside him flickered low, just embers now, the weight of loss settling heavy on his chest. He tried to stand, but his legs refused. Bruises and burns covered his arms. Every breath reminded him of the blows he and Sasuke had traded, not just fist and jutsu, but words and memories, too. Somewhere above, thunder rumbled, distant now, rolling over the broken statues that had witnessed the end of so many legends. Naruto stared up at the sky, letting the rain wash the sweat and blood from his face. For a moment, he let himself feel the defeat, the pain, the sorrow of having tried his hardest and still failed to bring his friend home. A gentle hand found his shoulder. He blinked, struggling to focus as Kurena's face swam into view. Her umbrella shielded him from the worst of the rain, her eyes full of worry and something deeper, understanding, compassion. "You fought for him, Naruto," she said quietly. "That's more than most would ever do." Naruto's throat tightened. "But I couldn't stop him. I lost." Kurena shook her head, kneeling beside him. "You didn't lose. Sometimes, just being there for someone is enough." Sometimes, all you can do is remind them they aren't alone, even if they walk away. He let her words settle into the cracks of his heart. Sakura and the others arrived soon after, battered and silent, carrying the wounds of their own battles. One by one, they helped Naruto to his feet, supporting each other as they began the long journey home. The road was quiet. The sun broke through the clouds by noon, glimmering on the rain-soaked leaves and promising that life would go on. Every step hurt, but every step was a reminder of friends, of bonds, of the strength it took to keep moving. Konoha greeted them with somber relief. Tsunade met them at the gate, her expression stern but eyes gentle as she assessed their injuries. "Rest," she ordered. "You've done enough for today." Naruto collapsed into his bed that night, sleep heavy and dreamless. For days, he drifted between exhaustion and waking, his body mending as the village healed around him. People whispered about the mission's failure, about Sasuke's escape, about the boy with the burning hands who'd almost saved him. But Naruto felt something else, a strange peace. He'd faced his friend, his rival, and even in losing, he hadn't given up hope. Kurenai visited him often, sitting quietly at his side, reading or sharing stories of missions past. Her presence was a balm, steady and warm. One night, as the sun set gold over the rooftops, she took his hand in hers. "You kept your promise," she said softly. "You fought for what mattered." He squeezed her hand, a smile tugging at the edge of his mouth. "Thanks for finding me. For not giving up on me, either." She smiled back, her cheeks tinged with the faintest blush. "I'll always be here, Naruto. You don't have to carry it all alone." Slowly, the ache in Naruto's chest eased. He realized the magma inside him was more than just power. It was the strength to keep going, to forgive, to love, even when things fell apart. Time passed. Wounds healed. The village moved forward. Naruto trained harder than ever, not just to get stronger, but to understand the fire inside him and use it to protect, not destroy. He never stopped hoping for Sasuke's return. But now, when he looked around at his friends, at Sakura, at Kakashi, at Kurenai, he saw all the reasons he had to keep moving forward. Naruto learned that forgiveness wasn't just something you offered to others, but something you gave yourself. He learned that even when bonds were stretched to breaking, they could be mended, one honest step at a time. And as the days grew warmer and the village's wounds faded into memory, Naruto knew that the fire in his heart was not just a burden, but a light, guiding him, always, toward home. Chapter 20, Phoenix Reborn. Spring touched Konoha with gentle hands, coaxing blossoms from battered trees and sunlight from behind old clouds. The wounds of battle had faded, replaced by the laughter of children and the steady thrum of daily life. But for Naruto, everything felt a little different, brighter, deeper, more real. He woke early now, often before dawn. Sometimes he jogged through quiet streets still dusted with dew. Sometimes he simply wandered, hands in his pockets, letting the breeze tangle his hair. The village greeted him with nods and smiles, respectful, sometimes curious, but not afraid. He was Naruto, the boy who burned like the sun, but who had chosen, again and again, to protect. Kurenai's presence in his life had become a steady warmth. They often met at the training grounds or beneath the tall trees by the river, sharing quiet conversations or sparring matches where laughter outweighed bruises. There were no grand declarations, just the gentle certainty of two people who understood each other, who had both lost and learned and found comfort in being seen. With Tsunade as Hokage, Konoha was changing too. New bridges spanned the river. New faces arrived to train and study. The village council, once wary, now looked to Naruto not as a threat, but as a promise, a new kind of protector. Children watched him with wide eyes, imitating his orange jacket and wild energy on their own little adventures. Naruto never forgot Sasuke. Some nights, he still dreamed of the Valley of the End, lightning and magma clashing, words left unspoken echoing in the dark. But pain softened with time, and the ache became a quiet hope, a promise that one day, their paths would cross again. His training continued, fiercer and wiser than ever. Jiraiya visited from time to time, teaching new techniques and sharing tales of the world beyond Konoha. Tsunade challenged him as well, demanding not just strength, but compassion and wisdom. One afternoon, as the sun blazed overhead, Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument, looking out at the village. Kurenai joined him, her eyes bright, her hair glinting red in the golden light. "This view never gets old," she said. Naruto grinned, a little older, a little wiser. "It's home, and I'll protect it with everything I am." She smiled, leaning closer. "You already do." They stood together, wind tugging at their clothes, the world sprawling out before them, full of possibility, full of stories yet to be written. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the magma deep inside. No longer wild, no longer just a weapon, but part of the fire that made him who he was. For the first time, he felt whole. Down below, the village bustled with life, unaware of the silent vow he made at that height. But for Naruto, the journey had only just begun, a future forged not from loneliness or rage, but from the warmth of bonds, the strength of forgiveness, and the never-ending will to move forward. And above it all, like a phoenix rising from ash, Naruto Uzumaki shone, unstoppable, unbreakable, and never alone. And that wraps up today's story. What if Naruto ate magma fruit? I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did putting it together. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment with your thoughts or your own what if ideas, and of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.